And Mr. James Lowe of Diocesan Boys School will read Politics at the London School of Economics starting this year. He is also the winner of the Sir Edward Bude Scholarship. So please welcome them warmly. To my left and your right, we have, drumroll, our FCC debating club, which we put together 5 minutes ago. Well, a little bit more than that. There was a little bit more prep time than that. But let me introduce you to Ms. Rachel Evans. She is a colleague of mine, a reporter at Bloomberg. She joined Bloomberg's corporate finance team September 2011 to cover Asia Pacific primary debt issuance. But she also graduated from a little place called University of Cambridge with a degree in history. Oh, and the reason why she's on stage is because she loves a good argument. Welcome, Rachel. Also a man who loves a good argument and in fact has made it his career, Kevin Barry Egan, barrister, Baskerville Chambers. He is also Associate Board Governor serving at FCC. And one could say that he is Hong Kong's most famous criminal barrister, colorful, from Queensland. He has won a rare victory against the ICAC. And if you want to look him up, color is indeed likely your middle name. So let's welcome Mr. Egan. And finally, we have Nick Edwards, business editor at the South China Morning Post. He has been Reuters' top economic news correspondent in Beijing before he moved to SCMP. And he joined SCMP as new business editor to oversee the entire business desk. He also loves a good argument, so we're very lucky indeed. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much. Before I start with the technicalities of the rest of the evening, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Tara Joseph. She is the president of the FCC. She would like to share a few words with you now.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going like this because I can't wait to see what's going to happen on this stage tonight. Thanks very much for coming to all our guests this evening. This idea of a debate was actually first brought up by a member of the club 15 years ago. And ever since then, it's been on our minds. Again, at the past AGM, a club member brought it up as an idea. And finally, we're putting it into action. We're so glad you all came tonight. Let the sparks fly and enjoy. Good luck, everyone.
As you may know, this is an impromptu debate. So while the topics have been shared with each team, they don't know which topic you will ultimately choose or vote for, and they also don't know which side they'll be arguing. So let's reveal the topics.
In the middle as the middleman. But more importantly, in this idea of the breaking of the news directly. The 2004 tsunami, 2005 Hurricane Katrina, the deaths of Bin Laden, Gaddafi, and Whitney Houston were all broken on Twitter as much as 55 minutes before it actually being reported on a news agency. And why is this so? Ladies and gentlemen, what we see is, with a click of a button and a 140-character tweet, or posting your status on Facebook, you can Instagram a burning house. You don't need to find out about it on tomorrow's local paper.
Point of information?
Yes, ma'am.
With Whitney Houston's death, it was indeed on Twitter before AP picked it up, but nobody retweeted the tweet until AP retweeted it.
We don't deny that indeed journalism still plays a role in today's world, obviously, or else we wouldn't be at the FCC right now. But what we say is social media has increasingly become the challenge in breaking the news. When we see that Twitter was what actually revealed the death of Whitney Houston to the public in the first place, and AP picked it up 55 minutes later, we say social media is indeed a great challenge. But moving back to that, we say with today's tech-savvy generation, the ease it takes to actually publicize information, we no longer need journalists at the scene. Journalists have to travel to the place and then Whereas people can actually do the same and whip out their camera phones at incidents like the Boston Marathon, when people are actually taking photos live at the scene. And the journalists and news agencies were actually taking the information they found on social media and turning that into news itself. We say the fundamental challenge here is that the role of providing information and breaking news has actually been taken over by social media.
Point of information.
Thank you, ma'am. The third point we'd like to do under this idea of the function is that the role of analyzing, processing information that journalists originally had has also been eroded by social media. We say that the concentration of analysis you can find on a YouTube news channel on things like technology or in sport has now been far more valuable and far more informative than what you can find on any news agencies. For example, YouTube channels with 2-hour live broadcasts and commentary on Apple versus Samsung. That is not some sort of news that you can actually find on news corporations on their broadcasts. So what we say is that we see people turning to these very specialized channels to look for the information that they need and they want. We no longer need that broad overview that journalism provides. People are taking the initiative to proactively going to Twitter, looking for hashtags related to their favorite and most pressing issue. We say people think this is the easiest and most convenient method of collecting information. If journalism no longer serves that role of being the bridge between what people need and the information they want, we say social media is the single biggest challenge. But finally, moving on to this point of the principles, the ethics of journalism. What we say, it is the code of conduct the journalists uphold that is the beacon of journalism. And we salute this room and all the journalists here for upholding things like accuracy, protecting sources, making sure that what you publish is of the higher standards. But sorry, ladies and gentlemen, your time is up, because we say the age of anonymous citizens who have no obligation whatsoever not to spread rumors or disseminate wrong information. Journalists as professionals who may have financial interests, who may have reputations on the line in producing what is accurate, what is of the highest quality, and be forced to publish things like retractions if they get facts wrong. We say all of these things, all this pressure no longer exists with social media. With something like Twitter.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. So, my job to tell you why that was impassioned. It was wrong. And it's wrong on many, many different levels. Scribbling down notes, 3 pages full, just on 8 minutes of why that was wrong. So, let me lay out what it is that we're going to do. I'm going to lay out our case. Our case is that social media is not a threat to journalism. It's a positive development. That this is the end of a phase, not the end of journalism. And that the core problem for journalism remains as it's always been, and that's been an issue of trust. So, we will explain these points to you. We will explain why the proponent's wrong, and we will explain and lay out for you why this is just a natural stage in the evolution of what news and journalism is all about. So, where do we go? Well, where can I start? So many different places that I could have gone from. So let me just pick. I think the proponents mistake the medium for the message. So what we're finding, of course, as we all know this is journalism. Let's go back. I used to work for Reuters, so 150 odd years old. What did we used to do? We used to send messages of 100 characters. We still do that today. We send them over telegraphs. We send them with pigeons. It's just about how you get the news there in the shortest form possible. So what we're doing today on Twitter with 140 characters is no different to the challenge that journalists have faced to get you facts as quickly as possible, but it's all about trust. So, mistaking the medium for the message, that's it. Undermining the role of journalism, don't think so. The amateur more attractive and viable than the professional. Maybe so at a certain point. That's simply about getting the information to you. What do we do as journalists all day long? We do as journalists, we used to do, I mean, for those of us who started before the internet, so I've been doing this 25 years, so this was before we had reliable computers that we could tap into and get a social network. What would you be doing? You'd be out meeting your contacts, you'd be on the phone, You'd be seeing people physically wherever it was that you could go. You'd be hoping to bump into people for the random chance meeting where you could get the piece of information that corroborated or set aside the argument that you heard about something else earlier on in the day. Social media simply brings that to us. It's a great collecting tool for us. We get to see from many, many different sources all at the same time what's coming in. You can pass that quickly, read through it, understand what it is that you need to say, and then understand where you can follow it up. Whatever.
Well, if a normal user can do that and just type in her Twitter newsfeed and find out all the sources of information, why do we need a journalist to collect that?
No. You misunderstand the collection for the verification of what's going on here. Collecting is easy. Anybody can collect it. That's a simple thing for people to do. The role of the journalist is to look at what's coming through, whether it's from social media, or the telephone, or the radio, or the television, or other sources, and bring it together and say, right, okay, these are the facts. This is what's really going on. This is what you need to understand. And frankly speaking, social media doesn't change that. I mean, we've been here before. So the telegraph, the radio, the television, are all of us still working? Are we necessarily going to be working in print 20 years from now, or 30 years from now, or 40 years from now, or 50 years from now? Maybe not. Might not take as long as that for a lot of newspapers to go on. As we've seen, I mean, a lot of community newspapers have disappeared. A lot of national newspapers in the UK are struggling to make it work. But also, it's not a uniform process. It's not like the social media transformation is wiping out newspapers and news organisations around the world. If you just focused on print, print is not having a singular, even distribution of closures. In fact, you're seeing newspaper circulation rise in a market like Hong Kong. This is a wired city, right? Everybody uses social media here. Why is that? Why is readership of print rising? Makes no sense. If the proposition that social media was the death of traditional journalism, if that was right, newspaper circulation wouldn't be rising in this place. It's rising across emerging markets. It's also rising in developed markets. You're getting a rise in circulation year on year in markets like Luxembourg, for example. Why is that happening? Well, that's not because there's a lack of trust, and it's not because there's a lack of social media access in developed economies versus emerging economies. The other thing to think about is how journalists use social media to get their message across. And again, this is something, thinking back to what we used to do at Reuters and a program that we did to help farmers in rural India. We were using text messages. Think about your definition of social media being as broad as you like. We used text messages to allow farmers access to crop price information so that they didn't have to trawl all the way across the country to get to a market where they were going to have to try and find out what the price of a product, of a commodity they were growing was going to be.